so they have this whole tagline where they're like, the future is not set, your fate is, there is no fate, only the one you make. And then they're like 4 movies later, just kidding, your future is set, and you just have to survive it. So
survive.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hope You Hated podcast. I am Jack.
And I'm Josh.
And we are back with another episode. This week, we're diving into something that is a fun thing to talk about and sometimes a fun thing to watch on the screen. But instead of a movie review, we will be discussing time travel and how it is portrayed in movies and TV, some of the things that are good, some of the things that are bad, and ultimately why I hate it in general. But before we do that, let's talk about what came out and what is coming out this past weekend.
Our sponsor.
Oh, I always skip the sponsor. Oh, I guess I don't always skip the sponsor, but
they're gonna hate us.
I know. This episode, once of course, is sponsored by Jury of Wolves. Wearing the hat, wearing the shirt. We had a comment that for those listening on Spotify, it's always interesting to describe what you're wearing when they can't see. So you're just going to have to picture it if you're not watching on YouTube. So
yeah.
Thanks for the comment.
They just follow the link, go to the store, they will see.
That's true.
My whole wardrobe.
That's true. So this past weekend, Thor: Love and Thunder came out. It's been received with mixed reviews, and I'm surprised.
Everyone I've talked to has enjoyed it so far.
So I've seen a lot of good, but I've also seen it's not as good as Ragnarok, and that's disappointing kind of thing. I think it's hard to follow up a movie like Ragnarok that was so tone setting for Thor's character. So that's interesting, but still excited. Still think Taika Waititi is fantastic with everything that he comes out with. So I'm still excited to see it. I didn't get to see it this past week, so hopefully this coming week I will. Tomorrow, very excited because the new Resident Evil Netflix show launches. So I'm very excited to watch that. We are approaching closer to The Gray Man, which comes out I think on the 22nd, which is next week. Bullet Train comes out at the beginning of August, and in August we're approaching Game of Thrones: The House of the Dragon. Yeah, which is very exciting for the Game of Thrones fans.
Yes.
So, anyways, now that part is over, now we're going to get into the meat.
Hit me with it.
I want to start off on a good note when it comes to time travel. So I suggest that you tell me a few of your favorite time travel based movies or shows.
Okay. I would start off with probably one of the first ones that I saw, which was the Back to the Future series.
Sure.
I enjoyed all 3 of those. Especially as a kid, I really liked the third one a lot. But I was a big fan of Westerns. And so that one took place, it was very Western themed. So sure. I really enjoyed that one. Getting older, of course, being a massive Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, Terminator was fantastic. Terminator 2 is still one of my favorite movies. Every time I see it on, I want to watch it, or at least watch a couple of scenes. It always is so enjoyable. After that, I'd have to say in my later teenage years, I really got into Donnie Darko. I was a massive fan of that. That was, of course, my first experience with Jake Gyllenhaal. And so it's, that being like a, older cult movie, it's really cool to see where he grew from that. Also, Seth Rogen was in that movie.
True.
He played, what was it, a bully or whatever that, only had like 1 or 2 lines, but it was very cool with that. Of course, not talking about time travel, just those 2 actors and stuff. Sure. But And then more recently, watching Umbrella Academy.
Okay.
I love that show so much. I love the way that they handle the time travel and everything. So, um, just so my list doesn't keep going on, because I could probably pull a couple more out of the hat. Those are some of my favorites.
And all right, so you've mentioned obviously some of the most iconic time travel based
Mm-hmm.
movies that there are, and I'll touch on a couple more. I think it's important to mention movies, even if I don't think they technically portrayed time travel in the best way or
Mm-hmm.
in the way that made the most sense, but still kind of like set a precedent. Like a movie like Interstellar gets memed
Mm-hmm.
on a lot, but fantastically shot movie, right? Like
Yeah.
it's it was very intriguing and it was a spectacle, even though you can again make fun of it for a lot of different things. The Edge of Tomorrow, or I
Mm-hmm.
think it was changed to Live, Die, Repeat, or something like
Something
that. I
like
don't.
that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they did a whole like name change thing. Fantastic. Even more recently, Tenet,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably one of the coolest, even though I still don't think it makes sense. Still one of the coolest portrayals
Yeah.
of time
It's
travel
pretty
in
dope.
recent history. I think very very just interesting the way that they did it, and of course, anytime you have Christopher Nolan
Yeah.
with a movie like that, it's just, I mean, again, I guess I'm a little biased because of my love for Inception.
Mm-hmm.
Inception not really time travel based, but you still have that paradigm of time, right? Like every time you went
Yeah.
deeper into a layer, the time went like slower there in the previous one, right? Like so it just
Yeah.
kept compounding. But anyways, you know, movies like that fairly recent, and so you can look at ones like that, but also look at ones from the 80s, like Terminator, right? Like Terminator 1,
Mm-hmm.
Terminator 2. The whole Terminator kind of trope is really what like ultimately made me kind of set my mind towards time travel in movies, because like I watched Terminator the first one when I was very young. I didn't.
Yeah.
It's weird because I was allowed to watch a movie like Terminator, but I wasn't allowed to watch Back to the Future. I don't know if it's because of the
Hmm.
crude humor. Like violence was okay, but crude humor wasn't
Yeah.
when I was a kid. I don't know. It's weird. I think mostly
Interesting.
because it was recorded from TV, so like the
Oh
swearing and the
yeah. They would
nudity
have
was
cleaned
cut
out a
out.
ton from
Yeah,
TV. Yeah.
right. But like there was a lot more like crude humor in Back to the Future that wouldn't have technically been,
Yeah.
I guess, edited out for TV. But anyways, that's aside. That we could go off on a whole other topic on that. But that kind of like set me up for, I love this movie. I love Terminator. Obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger as a kid, he's one of my like movie heroes, right? Like just amazing in
Yeah.
everything, even if the movies are bad or he was bad or however you want to look at it.
You always
But
have a good time.
yeah, but Terminator and the premise of, you know, you going you're in the future and you send your dad back in time so that he'll sleep with your mom so that you can be born so that you could send your dad back. So we're going to get into this whole like
Yeah.
time loop thing, and the fun thing about Terminator is that their whole premise was there is no fate but what we make, right? Like the future is
Hmm.
not set, okay?
Yeah.
But that's completely contradictory because the whole point of it was that the future was set. Like as the
It had already
series,
happened.
yeah, as the series went on, they realized that like no matter what, the future was going to happen, and it was about surviving it, and not about and
Hmm.
not about stopping it. And so they have this whole tagline where they're like, "The future is not set. Your fate is there is no fate, only the one you make." And then they're like 4 movies later, just kidding. Your future is set, and you just have to survive it. So that's
Survive.
that. Yeah. So, anyways, we're gonna get into that part. I do want to touch on what some of the more widely known time travel movies, of ones that are like iconically looked at to be the best. Okay.
Okay.
Fun fact: a movie like Tenet,
Mm-hmm.
Interstellar, not on this list.
I could see that.
So,
As cool and as groundbreaking, I feel like in certain ways that Tenet was, it's still not a for everybody kind of movie. It's
sure.
not one that I could turn to everyone and recommend. Where I'm sure there's going to be some on this list that it's like, yeah, they just reach a broad audience. I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking about like Back to the Future. We watched it, or you may have not have watched it as a kid, but it was still like, you could be 10, 11, and 12 and enjoy the movie. You could be 18 or 90 years old and enjoy the movie. If you like comedy, if you like action, if you like, whatever. And
Right.
it was dumbed down enough that everyone kind of got it. Where Tenet, like, you had to pay attention to that
Yes.
thing. Like, it was
Yes.
like, I don't think anyone understood it completely watching it the first time. Like, you almost have to
Yeah.
watch it 2-3 times and really kind of pay attention. And even then, like, there's probably people that are like, I just don't get that shit. Like,
Yeah.
So that would be what my speculation as to why something like that wouldn't make it in there.
Sure. I mean, I just find it interesting because they were such big scale movies, and again, like you said, they were very, like, for what they were, pretty iconic, right? However, I do think it's funny that Back to the Future Part 3 is your favorite Back to the Future, and it did not make the top 15 list.
And I'm okay with that.
1 and 2 did, though. Which is funny because
2 I did not enjoy as much.
Yeah.
I didn't like it because it showed the really scary future,
and
it was just like you felt bad the whole time.
Sure.
Where like I didn't enjoy watching Biff be rich and shit on everybody. Like, that just wasn't enjoyable to me.
Sure.
Where like, the first movie had a lot of fun stuff with Michael J. Fox, like doing a lot of cool shit. And it was a fun movie. And then the third one, like I said, Westerns, freaking love Westerns. So I'm always going to be down for something like that.
Yeah. You like Westworld a lot, which is why. Okay. So both Terminator 1 and 2 need mentioned, of course.
Of course.
After that, the Terminator series kind of just goes all over the place. One movie we didn't mention, Bill and Ted's.
Oh,
so iconic movie,
true.
Right? I think that was obviously like a fun way to look at time travel.
Yeah.
They ignored most of the rules of time travel. Yeah.
Every rule.
Yeah, maybe every rule. Again, Edge of Tomorrow, I mentioned that. It's a fantastic movie. I actually like how they did time travel in that, because it wasn't really like a time travel as much as it was like a time reset.
Yeah.
It was like a reset button, which I think is a way to deal with some of the time rules. Groundhog Day. We didn't mention Groundhog Day.
Yep.
Obviously,
Palm Springs is very much that way.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say I saw Palm Springs on another list. 12 Monkeys.
It's my hidden gem.
Brad Pitt and
yes, I forgot
Bruce
about
Willis.
that one too. Man, I haven't seen that one in forever. I need to go back and rewatch that. I remember like thinking back on it. I'm like, man, I love that movie, and I'm like, I don't remember anything about it.
And then 2 more, Looper. With Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis likes these time travel movies. Yep. I haven't seen The Fifth Element in forever, but something just keeps telling me like I should go back and watch it. Let's see, what else? Idiocracy, another comedy that's just fantastic, deals with time travel.
That one was.
You didn't like it?
Well, no. I wouldn't consider it time travel because he goes to sleep in like a time capsule thing and then wakes up in the future. It's not like he gets in a time machine and actually travels to the past. He goes to sleep, wakes up. Now it's, a couple hundred years later.
True.
That he wakes up. So he's living in the future, but I don't know. So, I mean, if you wanted to argue it, I'm not going to really argue against you, but
I'm just saying it's in a list of the best. Like, I'm not really.
No, I love the movie personally. I really enjoyed it. Satirical movies like that, when they can really hit home, are good. If it's well done, and I think it was good.
Did you see Primer?
I have not seen Primer. I
Have you
remember
heard?
that one being on like a list of mine to watch for probably 20 years,
Sure.
and I just never got around to watching that one.
So, being that it's like kind of indie-ish in
Mhm.
the way that it's made, it like doesn't. Whenever you look at it, it doesn't
Mhm.
look like a movie. You're like, oh, I'm really gonna enjoy this, but I think it's worth a watch.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't remember when that one first came on my radar, but
I mean, it's been out. It came out a long time ago. Like
very long time.
that's like
Yeah.
2004.
Yeah. I remember
So
like 20 years ago thinking I need to watch this movie, and then like every
yeah.
couple of years it'll pop up and I'll be like, I should watch that movie, and then I just never do.
Under extremely underrated movie. Well, actually, two of them.
Army of
One,
Darkness.
well, yes, that of course. Well, one that needs mentioned, the original Planet of the Apes.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you've ever seen that,
Mhm.
like Charlton Heston Planet of the
Yeah,
Apes.
it's been on TBS,
Okay,
a million times. Like,
okay,
you wake up
okay.
Saturday morning and it's like halfway
Like
through
on
the
there,
movie, you're
yeah,
like, "I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
sit down and watch it." Yeah.
yeah. Um, very cool. I remember the first time I saw that with like the whole he doesn't know where he is and he's on the beach and then you see like the Statue of
Mhm.
Liberty kind of
Yeah.
like washed up and you're just like, wait, what? So
Yeah.
that's cool. The Time Machine with Guy Pearce. Do you remember that movie?
It's not ringing a bell.
He like travels into the future where like
Mhm.
society has devolved into like these warring like factions. It's pretty
Hmm.
interesting.
No, I have not seen that one.
And then there was one, and now I'm not going to be able to remember the name of it. It's got Paul Walker, Gerard Butler.
Fast and Furious.
Yes. What is it called? I don't want to look it
Paul
up. Paul
Walker.
Walker, Gerard Butler. They go
Mm.
back to like the medieval times. Gerard Butler dies. Well, he stays at the end, and he ends up being the knight that they dig
I
up in
feel
their.
like I saw the previews, but I don't think I ever saw that movie.
Oh man, hold on, I'm gonna find it. Paul
Uh,
Walker, rest in peace. Let me
Everybody's
see.
probably screaming at us. I know
Yeah.
that's what I do on podcasts when they're like, "What's the name of that?" And I'm just like, "It's Lizzo!" Yeah, everyone's probably doing that to us right now. I'm
It's fine. It's
sorry.
fine. It's
I
fine.
apologize.
I got this. Hold on.
Mhm.
It's called Timeline.
Timeline.
Yes.
Name is not a very good one, and that's why I didn't remember it.
A group
Because
of
you hit me with that,
archaeologists
and it's
become trapped in the past when they go there to retrieve a friend. The group must
Mhm.
survive 14th century France before they can escape back to the 21st century. Gerard Butler ends up like falling in love and staying there, and then
Mhm.
like it turns out that in the future the archaeological dig that they're digging is like his like casket or like whatever, like when
Ooh,
he's finally
what a
buried.
twist.
Yeah, it's. I
That's
mean,
pretty
it's good.
dope.
It's good.
Yeah,
It's
no, I
good.
like it. I like that idea.
So
Mm.
yeah, I mean,
Digging
and
up your own bones.
obviously there's some other like little honorable mentions, like I think Deathly Hallows, Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part One,
Mhm.
when they have the little time winder necklace thing, and
Mhm.
they show themselves like watching themselves. I okay, so that
Mhm.
in and of itself makes me angry. So this is where we're going to switch.
Hit me
Okay,
with it.
so
Hit me with
all
it.
right, so here's the thing. Typically, there are two types of like time travel movies, okay, or
Okay.
TV shows, and like the way that they're dealt with. One is like complete and utter abandonment for like the rules of what you would think would happen with time travel, right? So like
Yeah.
for instance, Bill and Ted travel back and they like meet, Mozart and this person, that person, and like
Napoleon Dynamite.
yeah, Napoleon Dynamite, and they don't care that like they're like could be messing up the future because like
Yeah.
there's no rules, right?
There should
And
have been
then
water parks all over France
yeah,
afterward.
exactly. And then there's the other ones that like try to establish a set of rules and then stick with
Mhm.
them. The Marvel universe is very very it's a good example of that because they set up their own
Mhm.
time continuum rules, and then they try to abide by them by trying to
Yeah.
make everything fit under like, well, it's the multiverse, and well, this is what's happening in this universe while this is happening over here,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff gets super muddy, right? Because
Yeah.
you're not sure, like, okay, well, which universe did they travel back to, and
Mm-hmm.
which one are they doing? Da, 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 da. So like things start to branch out, and every time you go one direction with a new timeline, you end up with this conundrum of, okay, so how did we tie off the last one? All right, so that's
Mm-hmm.
another way to do it. And then sometimes too, it's like we're gonna do time travel, but we're not gonna even like, there's rules, and we're gonna maybe explain the rule that we're abiding by, but we're not gonna really talk about the effects
Mm-hmm.
of what could happen because of our time travel. So
Yeah.
it's typically like one of those three. My issue ultimately, obviously, isn't with the parody ones and the ones that are just using time travel for like a gateway device to make a fun movie. Because
Mm-hmm.
whatever. My issue is with time travel being portrayed in movies as a real thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then B, when they come up with solutions based on their own rules that don't make sense. I.e., like I mentioned before, the Terminator paradox, right? So,
Yeah.
and it's super hard for somebody that's listening, I would like to draw you a diagram, okay? I would
Yeah.
like to draw you a diagram. So imagine, you're gonna have to, anybody listening, you're gonna have to imagine that I'm at a whiteboard and you're watching me draw this. Okay, so
Okay.
you have you, Josh, in 2022. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you're here and you're on this line, right? Now you want to go back to the day that your parents conceived you. I know it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you go to that day
It was a
as
great day.
37-year-old you. Okay, you go then and you say,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, just before this happens, I just want you to know that 37 years from now, I'm the kid that's going to come out of this.
This is what you
Okay.
get.
This is what you get. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
they can either decide to continue it and do
Mm-hmm.
it anyway, or they can be like, hey, okay, yeah, we
Yeah.
don't want that. we don't want to do this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then in that moment, and now we're going to even say that for sake of argument, you have a time travel device that allows you to go from point A to point B in the past and then
Mm-hmm.
back again, right? So
Yes.
you're not back in 1984 or 85 just waiting, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You're not just like there as a 37-year-old version of yourself and you're like, "Well, now I'm in the 80s and I have to
Yeah.
live from here on," right? So just say you can get back. So you go there, you talk to your parents at the time, and then they go, "Okay, not going to do it."
Mm-hmm.
Do you just cease to exist?
That you're getting into the fundamentals then of like real life time travel and what would happen.
Mhm.
And then that's the thing that's very squirrely is
Well, I'm getting into this
it's all
because
hypothetical.
that's
So
that's my point,
yeah.
right? That's what's being portrayed in a movie. So in a movie, for instance, or
Mm-hmm.
again, going back to the Terminator paradox, right? So you send you again. I'm using you as an example because
Yeah.
it's parallel. So you go back, you tell your parents like, "Hey, this is what you get." Now, like flip side of that argument, they go through with it. They make you
Mm-hmm.
okay. So now, little you, 37 years later, okay,
Mm-hmm.
do you have to go back in time again to tell them? Because
Yeah.
keep in mind that now that you've
Mm-hmm.
done that in your own timeline and you went back and told them and then you came back to the present,
Yeah.
that's now a thing that you did, right?
Yeah.
And so that ultimately that's part of your person that you visited, your fetus. That's part of that person's timeline.
See, I think that who is ever writing and directing the movie, it is their choice on how they want to play that out. If they want to do things silly, like you said, like with Bill and Ted,
Mm-hmm.
and just go grab Napoleon from the past, bring him to the future, take him to a water park, have him do a thing at the school presentation, then take
Mm-hmm.
him back, and then go, oh, that's not going to have any effect on the world we're living in
Sure.
today. That's fine. You can go about doing it that way. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed the hell out of that movie, you know. But if the writer and director is trying to be very, very specific on how these things are done, and you happen to see different holes in their logic and their thinking, then yeah, I think you can criticize them for that. But at the same time, it's like time travel is a very um, theoretical type thing. So we have to look at it that way. You know, it's the same as when we're watching any sci-fi movie that has just space travel. There's some space travel that we could do, but most space travel in movies is theoretical and hypothetical. That,
Mm-hmm.
you know, once we get to that point that we can maybe traverse the universe like they show in some of these movies, those people will be looking back on these movies and go, oh my God, do you see that they did wrong, and that
Yeah.
they did wrong, and that they, you know. But I understand where you're coming from with the time travel thing, because most of it is a lot of logic type fallacies.
Mm-hmm.
That it's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense, because you would think, okay, well, yes, me in the future would then have to set an alarm for that day to make sure that I go back in time
Yeah.
to make sure that this cycle continues. But then at the same time, that then ignores basically the whole existence of butterfly effects. You know, the fact that my parents could see me and go, oh God, you have, our son in the future has tattoos. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
we didn't discipline him enough. And
Yeah.
they beat the hell out of me as a kid.
And then you never
And
get
maybe I don't
tattoos.
survive. Maybe I don't survive to 37,
Sure.
you know, or whatever. Then I can never go back. So those kind of things, like it depends on how much I feel like a movie wants to play into it and how serious they want to be taken with things. Like I feel like a movie like Tenet, you know, that one tried to take the time travel thing very seriously, and how they were
Mm-hmm.
going to be handling things, and how the different worlds and everything worked. That if there's some blatant just logic mistakes that they make, yeah, that can throw you off that movie and make you not enjoy it. But
Sure.
you know, if they do a good enough job that it's like, okay, I had to watch the movie 5 times, and now, like, what about this, dude? It's like, well, yeah, I can't think of everything. This is a hypothetical situation. It's something that we've created, you know, in our imagination. That yeah, there's always going to be little trip ups along the way. So that's why personally I don't get too upset with things,
Yeah.
because I do understand that there's always going to be logic, you know, loops that you just, plot holes basically
Sure.
within time travel type things.
But I think that that's part of the reason why it grinds my gears so much, because
Mm-hmm.
I think that unfortunately time travel can be used as more of like a crutch to lean on to explain how, oh well, they just went back in time and changed the future, so now we're
Yeah.
good. You know what I mean? And it ends up being more like lazy than anything else,
Mm-hmm.
because I truly do not think that you can logic your way out of, like, even in a simple scenario like I just talked about, right? Like, even
Yeah.
giving you all of the benefits of, like, you can travel, you can go back and forth and whatever, that doesn't explain, like you said, like, if your parents were to see you at 37 before they had you, would they do things different? And then does that spawn off a separate timeline where you grow up more conservative, or
Yeah, because I mean,
you
realistically
whatever?
thinking, like, even if I have the conversation with them, I'm now going to be conceived, even if it's 1 second later. So who knows what that's going to change in
Sure.
the timeline of me being conceived 1 second later. And then maybe that means that I'm born 1 second later. Well, maybe the doctor that's trying to help me be born is helping someone else because I wasn't quite ready to come yet. And that 1 second, like, you never see how those little things, you know, snowball
Right.
into, like I said, the butterfly effect of everything that you could do by going back to the past.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, and that's kind of the whole point of using the diagram of like, as soon as you time travel, your timeline is a spider web. Like literally, as soon as you time travel, even if you come back to that point, you've now set yourself up for a recurring loop.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you come back, because once you come back, you will have time traveled.
Yes.
And so then your younger self, even if nothing changes, right? Like nothing changes, you still grow up exactly the same. You still will get to that point when you're 37 and go, oh, I have to go warn my parents. And you will go do that, right? And it's boom, boom. But on the off chance that something does change, that spider web, when you take your little dot and go from 37 back to 0 and you talk to your parents, and again, maybe their conception is a minute off, maybe they decide to discipline you different. Now we have these spider webbing timelines that create an infinite possibility, right?
Yeah.
So then this goes into the second part where now we're talking about, and the big thing that Marvel deals with is multiple universes, right? So every time somebody travels into the future or into the past, we now have to deal with an alternate reality where you went, this changed XYZ, the butterfly didn't land on the branch, this didn't happen, the car didn't hit this person, and now all of a sudden, Hitler never killed himself.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, it's an endless stream of realities that I think that every time it ends up in a show or a movie, it can't be done properly because there aren't tangible rules to follow. And so everything that is being done is, like you said, is hypothetical, is theoretical. And what ends up happening is that they do it to whatever the best of however they want to portray it, and it ends up being so logically flawed that it takes you out of what's actually happening.
Yeah. I think it depends on how much the movie tries to get into it. Like, even though Back to the Future is very specifically a time traveling movie, they kept the rules very simple. It's like, this is the present. If we go back to the past and we change this one specific thing that we change will change in the future. Ignore all butterfly effects. We do this, we go back, that's change. You go here, you put a quarter there, you go to the present, that quarter will still be there. Like all those kind of things. So it kept it very basic, very dumb, super easy to follow. You weren't at the end going like, I'm really confused. Like, was that person really there? Or that? No, it was a fun movie with a silly storyline, great characters, great actors. It was just enjoyable for being what it was. But if
didn't he almost become his own dad or own grandpa or something?
His mom got a crush on him, but he the whole time wasn't ever like, oh, I'm gonna hook up with my mom.
Oh, that was a Futurama. That was in Futurama where he was like his own grandfather, his own great grandfather.
Because it was basically in the movie, his dad was supposed to get hit by a car, and then his mom kind of falls in love with the dad because he got hit by the car. And so when Michael J. Fox saves his dad from getting hit by the car and gets hit by it himself, now his mom has feelings for him. So he screwed things up that way. And it's, it was what made the whole time travel thing fun, was because he was going back in time to fix things. And of course it just showed, I'm going to make 10 problems for every one that I fix.
Sure.
And so now I'm scrambling to try fixing everything at the end. And then you pull off the Hail Mary ending and I rescue everything at once. And it's like, yes, feel good movie, kind of thing. So it kept things basic. It kept things fun. That's why I would say that I enjoy that one.
Which is why you end up hating 2, because you realize that there is a reality somewhere where Biff is the rich asshole.
But see, not in the Back to the Future world. There's no multi.
Hey, I'm just saying,
or anything like that.
Hey, we've already talked about this. He time traveled, so there's a multiverse.
Yeah,
there's a universe where Biff was, He was the guy.
Hypothetically speaking, that is very true. I understand, but like I said, it depends on how nitpicky you want to be. Like I said, if you're
Very.
watching a car movie and there's a Tesla driving beside another car and they have sound coming out of the engine of the Tesla, you're gonna go, "Oh God, they shouldn't have done that." But it's like, does that ruin the whole movie for you? Like
I
it
mean,
depends. It depends on how important that thing is to it, but generally to me, I forgive small mistakes, what's it called? The guy that checks everything in a movie to make sure that things are correct. Like if they're doing a movie in like the 50s that they have to make sure who's the
what? Oh,
continuity
the
guy or something.
continuity guy. I mean, there's a million of
Yeah.
those editors that are checking for
Yeah.
everything, making sure there's no Starbucks cups in the 1950s black and white
Yes.
film.
Sometimes those kind of things happen.
Sure.
This is, at the end of the day, these are actors that they probably don't understand this stuff. They probably understand this stuff less than we do. They're just there reading lines, having fun, trying to make something that I could sit down on the couch and watch and go, I enjoyed that.
Sure.
There I
But
mean,
this
unless
but
if
this
it was a
isn't
documentary on time travel, then I could understand you getting upset and going, "That doesn't make any sense." But it's literally like, we're stealing Genghis Khan and bringing him to do a school play. Like,
I don't have problems with that. I already said I don't
yeah,
have
I
problems with
know. So
those
so
movies.
which so I mean, it would so then why is it that you have a problem with something like a Terminator, which is basically just an action version of a Bill and Ted? It's just not a silly comedy version. It's an action
No,
version of it.
the problem is because the entire premise of the movie, the fate of the world is hanging
Mhm,
on this person that was sent from the future, and whether or not like he can save the his lieutenant, his
mhm.
mom, that guy's lover from being killed and eliminated by the Terminator, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the premise, and it's cool and it's awesome, and it like oh yeah, fate of the world, we gotta, but like at the end you find out like okay, so they tried and they failed, and then in Terminator 2 like they're just gonna send another, but like
Mhm,
it's further into the future, so like they also have reprogrammed the T1000 and
mhm.
this and the other thing. So it's like got the T1000 coming in. What model was Arnold?
Arnold was the T1000.
Oh, that's right. So Arnold was
The other guy was the
T1000, and that was
T3000,
the two. Is that right?
right? God, now I'm all mixed up.
Ah,
I'm
see,
sorry.
yeah. Now I'm questioning myself. I thought the T1000 was. I don't remember.
I'm pretty
Anyways,
sure Arnold was the 1 and the other guy was the 2.
now I have to look. Now I have to look because
Yeah, please
I'm
do.
I'm I'm embarrassing myself in this moment
This
right
is
now.
this is really great for a movie
Yeah.
podcast.
No, it's because I said it out loud, and then I
I know, it
and then
just
I
doesn't
questioned,
sound right
yeah,
coming
and I
off my
questioned
tongue.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I was right. So the T1000 is, see, you messed me up. I blame you.
I've never seen the movie.
That actually
I'm
makes a
just
lot of sense. The
I'm just
T1
kidding.
T1000 was the all liquidy
Yeah, the
metal
liquid
guy.
metal dude.
Yeah.
Okay. Can't that I don't
All right.
yeah,
But
I don't
but
know about
regardless, right? So like my issue ultimately
Mhm,
is like okay, so they're going forward with like it's a serious, this is what's happening, we're sending people from the future, and
mhm,
it's going to be da 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 da, and they make the whole tag, the future is not set, right? There
mhm,
is no fate but the one we make. But the whole point was that the future was set, and the future was going to happen, and they just needed to survive it, and then they ended up breaking off where like they made Salvation with Christian Bale
mhm.
and Sam Worthington,
Yep.
and that Terminator like had feelings because he remembered when he was a human, because they turned him into a Terminator from when he was a felon.
Mhm.
And then the Terminator franchise was like, that actually isn't canon in the series, so like forget that one. And we're gonna make another one, and then another one, and they made the one with Khaleesi. What's her name?
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm having a
It's
hard
not
time.
Not important.
It's not important. No, it's
Okay.
definitely important.
The important question here is the very first time that you watch Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Yeah, did I
Did you
like it?
enjoy it?
I loved it. It's fantastic.
Yes. So it wasn't probably until much later when you were older or had seen the movie multiple times or started learning more about time travel that you
Yeah,
started poking holes in the logic theory. That's
sure.
my thing with this is going any movie if watched enough times and you try to poke holes in it, you will be able to poke holes in it because you just like the writer of these things is trying to write something to entertain us. If they knew all the time travel rules, they would be a scientist and not writing screenplays.
No, that's not
So,
true. That's not true. Oh, it's like, okay, so
uh,
let's take like something more simple, like a Fast and
okay.
Furious, right? So
Mhm.
if you're watching a Fast and Furious movie and you're like, oh, these are awesome cars and big name actors, and all of a sudden, like the cars that were driving down the road just like in, instead of having tires, their tires just dissolved into the road and they were just swimming through the road like they were boats. You'd be like,
Mhm.
what? Like they didn't transform or anything because that happens at half the time in
Yeah.
that series. Like whatever, that whole series is off the rails. But you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying.
I did.
If they just start swimming down the road, you'd be like, that's weird. That doesn't make
Yeah,
sense,
so
right?
if they're gonna make a movie about cars, know the basics, and that's what I feel like time travel movies do. They know at least some of the basics.
No,
I
they
think when you get
pretend
in
to. They
yeah, but I
pretend to
mean,
know
think about it.
basics
There's no
because there are no real.
solid
Yeah, exactly,
rules.
exactly.
That's the thing. At least with a car, there are very solid rules. You need an engine, you need wheels, you need seat, like those kind of basic things. You need gasoline to make it run. You have these set rules that if you don't have those, it's not going to work whatsoever. So they pick and choose the very basics to just go, if we have this and this in our time travel thing, it could work. And yeah, I mean, I'll agree. There are probably 1,000 crappy time travel movies because they are lazy with it, they are not paying attention, and they have holes everywhere.
Hmm.
But I think most of the movies that we named have all been ones that I personally have enjoyed because of the fact they get in they get enough of the rules right, or they kind of let you know what kind of way they're going about it. Like if you watch a Loki or you watch some of these that really do deal with the multiverse theory, where if you time travel, there's now a whole nother line that we're dealing with, and then they can talk about things that way and go deeper, and then you're dealing with multiverses and the logic behind how that works and everything, that things get very convoluted. It's a crazy subject to deal with, but I'm glad that someone's brave enough to do it because I enjoy the hell out of multiverse things. Like I have loved so many of the shows and movies and things that have come out about that.
Yeah.
My whole thing with the Umbrella Academy, especially this newest season, or just the Umbrella Academy as a whole, is they have the whole commission that is, it's kind of like Loki in the sense that you have these guys that are like the police of the timeline, that when
Hmm.
people try to do things outside of that, they have to go back and they got to fix and make sure that no one's screwing up these things. This newest season is dealing with what you were talking about, the grandfather paradox,
Yeah.
the fact that they go to a timeline where they should have never been born. And
Hmm.
so now the whole universe is ending because it can't figure out how to handle things. It's like there are people here that should not be they should not be here because they were never born.
Yeah.
So we're just going to collapse in on ourselves. And the way that they do it is super fun on trying to figure out, well, why were we never born? How much time do we have before the universe ends? Can we figure out a way to fix this scenario? That it's just done fun. Like I said, movies are supposed to be entertaining and fun. That if you want something that really goes deep into it, find documentaries on time travel and go argue with that guy and go, that shit doesn't make sense, dude. But I don't think I'm ever going, well, I'm not going to say I'm never going to argue with the director. There's plenty of shit I'll argue and stuff like that. But with most, like I said, I don't let it, I try not to overthink things and let things bother me if really there's no one to argue with. Like, I mean, what's the point of being mad at the Terminator series when
Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not mad at this series. I again, I have a hard time with time travel movies in general
Mhm.
because going into it, I'm like, I just have a preset like, this is not going to make any sense. They're going to explain away the fact that they went into the past and changed everything, and somehow
Mhm.
their body in the future just didn't get left as a either a clone or a copy, or the person that, like, when they travel, especially when they travel in they go to a future or a past, and then they stay there, or they're just there, and now there's two
Mhm.
of them,
Yeah.
right? So one of them, okay, is
Mhm.
going to say, especially in the past, you go again, we're going back to my whiteboard. Josh, you at 37, you go 3 years prior and you
Mhm.
stay there, okay? So you're now in 2019 with your 34-year-old self, and your 37-year-old self and your 34-year-old self stay there. You then stay in that period with your other person. Maybe you don't even interact, but you're just there, and you
Mhm.
stay there for 3 years, okay?
Mhm.
Now, your 34-year-old self gets to 37. What does he do?
I would recommend that he would get in a time machine
He travels
and go
back.
back,
Right.
because if he doesn't, then you could create, a black hole in the universe that destroys everything.
Correct. And your 37-year-old self that went back 3 years is now
Mhm.
who is
Rich as
now
fuck
37. He's
from
actually 40.
Bitcoin or some shit.
So you're now 3 years behind or ahead.
Mhm.
No, behind. So your 37-year-old self is now 40 in 2022, okay?
Yep.
And maybe you live on cuz you but for those 3 years there is one of you that is going to continually loop for 3 years.
Mhm.
That doesn't work. That can't work.
Okay. So, um, there's lots of rules with time travel. So, I would like to know, is there a movie that you have seen that you think checks all of the rules that you have laid out, that you're like, "I've tried poking holes in the logic of this one's nailed it for me," or just all of them
I
close but
think
no cigar?
I think that it's close but no cigar. I think that Tenet was a very, very interesting look at it with
Mhm.
things going backwards. Um, one like basically one timeline running backwards, one running forwards. I
Mhm.
thought that was very interesting,
Yeah,
and then
I liked it a
and
lot.
them using, because like in time that way, like if you could figure out a way to like view time in reverse, it wouldn't
Mhm.
technically mess up the time that it's traveling forward. Like I like the forward thinking of that.
Mhm.
I think that the only way that time travel makes sense, again, leaving the parody out of it, leaving the bringing Genghis Khan to your school play in the present and then sending him
Mhm.
back and like acting like that's not going to literally destroy like old China and
Yeah.
Asia and all of that. You know what I mean? Like ignoring that, the only way that it works is if you have some sort of device or plot point, or like this is the way it works in this universe where
Mhm.
it breaks the rules. For instance, the best thing that I can use as an example is the Edge of Tomorrow,
Mhm.
right? So how he every time he dies, he loops
Yeah.
back to a specific place
Mhm.
because of like the blood in the whatever thing. Like there's some thing that they figured out with the um what is it, like one of the aliens or the alpha alien or something? I don't remember. I haven't seen it in a really
Something.
long time, but it has
Yeah.
something to do with like the mind of the whatever. Anyways, in it, like the way that it works, right? He dies, he loops, he goes again, and every
Mhm.
time he dies, he just resets, resets, resets. you don't have to worry about time travel not making sense in that scenario, because you're literally introducing a plot device that's like, this breaks all the rules of time travel. It
Yeah.
goes dot dot dot, you reset, you go again. You can use that same sort of thing if you're just like, okay, so in this universe, I travel back in time. I get to spend 30 seconds in whatever gear I want. I
Mm-hmm.
do as much as I can in those 30 seconds or 30 minutes. I zip back, and it's like I was never there, except for whatever effect I had on things.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for instance, you could use that to say, okay, well, I'm going to go back in time and assassinate Hitler, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you do that, you're there for 30 seconds, you pop back out. You yourself, even though you performed an action or did something that changed the course of history, you don't have to deal with the consequences of like a new timeline of you're there and now it
Yeah,
splits off
because you
into
came
another
back.
one. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So that's the only way it makes sense, or remotely makes sense. I don't like the wording "makes sense" because I don't think it ever makes sense.
Yeah.
Truly makes sense, but that's okay, because as you said, it's all for entertainment purposes.
I'm telling you, if you were just dumber, you would love movies so much more.
Yeah, okay.
I love all these movies because I'm just dumb as shit. Like I don't. I mean, maybe after watching Terminator 10 times, 20 times, and thinking about things and learning more and watching other movies about time travel, did I go back and think about it? But I'm telling you, for probably age 10 to age 25, I enjoyed the hell out of it and didn't once think like, "Hey, that shouldn't be possible," right? Like, no, I just enjoyed the movie because it's freaking awesome. Like
I
Arnold comes
just
in butt ass
yes.
naked, stealing motorcycles, like shooting that shotgun, flipping it around, bam! Like, oh, dude, it's just
Listen,
freaking dope.
I agree. I agree. I just can't handle the fact that Terminator,
Mm-hmm.
their literal tagline, is a contradiction to the storyline. I can't. It doesn't. I'm sorry. I love
Yeah, but
it.
that's the tagline with the newer ones, isn't it?
No, it's the Terminator 2 Judgment Day quote. The future is not set. There
I
is no
thought the
fate
quote was
but
"I'll be
what we.
back."
No, that's from number one. There is no fate but what we make for ourselves. No, that's not. That's not the way. That's not the
I
way it
need your
goes.
clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
Motorcycle, give them to me now.
Blah,
Um,
blah.
yeah, great movie.
I,
It's
I,
it,
yeah.
maybe that should fall in the maybe it should actually fall in the parody category.
That's what I'm saying. It's just an action version of Bill and Ted. That's all it is. There's no actual logic that went into it. They were like, time travel is cool. Wouldn't it be cool if we just went back in time and shot this dude and now that never happened? It's like, yeah, that works. It's like, all right, let's just write that. And like no one sat down and go, okay, time travel. How does it work? So it's gonna be like, it doesn't. It's like, oh, so I guess we can't do the movie. They're like, well, we still
No,
want
we're
to do
gonna
the
do it.
movie. Like,
We're
yeah,
still gonna do it.
it's like it doesn't matter.
Just
It
doesn't
doesn't
work though.
matter. Yeah, there's lots of things that just do not work in movies, and we can enjoy the hell out of them because the story can be good enough, the acting can be good enough. You get a good fuzzy feeling in your belly, or maybe you want to be scared, and that's your thing. It doesn't matter as long as, like I said, these are all in the entertainment category. Like, do not stress yourself about logic in movies,
Yeah.
or it will drive you nuts. Because
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't matter. We could pick one movie and out of anything, just pick a movie out of a hat, and we could probably find 1,000 different things wrong with it if we really spent time thinking about it. Just the way that people talk and have conversations sometimes in movies, it's just like no real people talk like that. Do actors and directors not get that? Like I've never once had a conversation that way with another human being where they're
Yeah.
like, "Yes, mother, I will go into the bubba." It's like,
Yeah.
who does that?
Who
Like,
talks like that?
but if you just dumb it down and you're like, yeah, they're just having a conversation, that's mom and daughter, whatever, and they're going on to do that, like, cool. Like,
I read an
not
article
gonna worry
recently
about it.
that talked about how you have to make sure that when you're writing a script, you are taking into account whatever like the dialect is in the area that you're like setting the movie. So like, for instance, if you're setting a movie in Boston, it's not enough just to like have actors that can do a Boston accent, right? But there are like phrases and things that people in Boston would just never say.
Yeah.
And then people in like Wisconsin, they don't just have a Wisconsin accent. They like say certain phrases, and they say
Yeah.
like they have a way of conversating. And a lot of times what happens is like people just write how they talk or how they expect people to talk, but necessarily they don't talk like that in whatever the setting is. But that just furthers my point of like, yes, movies are entertainment, but there are so many things that can take you out of, for me at least, that can take you out of the story to where
Yeah.
the movie isn't enjoyable or as enjoyable because you're too focused on, like, it'd be like if you were talking to somebody, right? And they had lettuce in their teeth.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking to them and you understand what they're saying, but like all you can think about is that they have lettuce in your teeth, and you're looking for a place to like butt in. Hey, there's lettuce in your teeth. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like try to, and that's how I feel like time travel in movies is for me. I'm watching it and I am watching it and enjoying it maybe, but the whole time I'm just like, there's lettuce in your teeth.
No, I totally get that, because like I said, if we're dealing like with that the continuity guy, whatever that word is. Like I was a big fan of the TV show Mad Men. You know, takes place years ago, can't remember what date or whatever. But I remember like reading about the director and how super anal he was about every single item in the show had to be like perfectly set. Like if there was a stapler, if there was a pen, if there was like anything, it was like a million Easter eggs that he had of different things in that show, that all of them were just perfect, spot on. Yes, that makes me appreciate that show so much more, because they put the time and effort into doing the absolute best that he could to make sure every car that went by, every suit that was made, like there's a lot of things that we don't think about. Like, I mean, like I said, the suit that they're wearing, I'm not gonna know. I mean, if it's the same shape as a style and it looks old, I'm gonna be like, yeah. But if you're a suit guy and you're like, yes, that suit was definitely from that time. Like, to put forth the effort to do that, even though you know that 99% of your viewers aren't going to understand it, but the ones that are really hardcore or maybe grew up in that time are going to really get it and they're going to appreciate it. I think it's super, super dope that they do that. And I think, so, I mean, I understand what you're saying when it comes to time travel stuff, that there's some people, I feel like it's more like there's some directors that just don't respect what it is to put the time or energy into doing anything with it. They take, like you said, the easy way out of, oh, our main hero has a problem, we can do all this shit and then we'll fix it at the end by going back. And it's like, yeah, that's a cop out. I will completely agree with you in that aspect. But if someone puts forth the time and energy and makes it good, because time travel is hypothetical and theoretical, and that there are no set guidelines for it, as far as we know, there are no set guidelines, then you got to have a little bit of wiggle room and, you know, chill. Wiggle. But I at the same time, I understand where you're coming from, because that's the thing with you. You're the suit guy. So when you're watching, you're like, that suit just doesn't work. That suit wasn't made until 2 years ago. And, you know, like it's it gets wild out there in the entertainment industry. I'm just saying.
True. Anyways, enough about time travel.
Well, then that's enough about our podcast. So that's all we're talking about.
Enough about time travel. That's it for that. Anyways, there will be once again a poll and a question in the Spotify episode if you're listening to this on Spotify. So please leave us an answer and take the poll. Let us know what you thought. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing and what you think about time travel in movies or time travel in general.
Mm-hmm. Or any
And
recommendations of ones that we didn't mention that you're like,
yeah,
this is the perfect time travel movie. It will
alleviate all your
appease
concerns.
Jack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's good luck with that one. If you can come up with a movie that I will watch through that deals with time travel without any continuity issues, I will send you a hat. There you go. Heard it here on the podcast. Anyways, that's all the time we have for this week. Thanks for watching, listening, and we will see you next time.
Mm-hmm. See you later, alligators.